Welcome, sir.
Mentioning freaks of nature, and you guys will be right at home together up here on this stage, right?
Thank you. It's always good to get that first dig in. Thanks, Brett.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Monday was my birthday. Thanks for noticing.
73, 74? What are we talking?
Well, Brett, we wish we had more time. What's going on?
You bring it out in me. So.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a great month for us. A little bit of a shameless plug here, but to us, it's news and it's valuable to the community. We over the last 2 months have introduced something that's kind of familiar, we hope, to the Mesa community, and that's a reintroduction of the Mesa Tribune. The idea behind it is that we want to get back to localizing our content better for the communities we serve. That includes Mesa, but also Chandler, Gilbert, and the rest of the East Valley. And starting in early July, we rebranded the Mesa edition of the Tribune that's being distributed to the homes that we serve in the Mesa community. And so it's kind of baby steps right now. The starting point was that, and to ramp up a little bit of attention and value to that, and then piece by piece, you're going to see the entire product morph into an entirely Mesa-oriented product specifically here in this community. And then, like I said, the neighboring ones will as well. And we felt that with the history that the Tribune has in this city, and definitely a clamoring from our readers, that's part of it. That bringing back Mesa's own newspaper is something that the residents, the businesses, the community here deserves.
Not only that, but here's a little tip. If you might want to just really get it up and cooking really good, and then that Jeff Bezos guy from Amazon will come in and buy it.
If he clicks the one-click shipping ordering thing, we can give it to him next week if we want. No.
What in the newspaper business? What did you think of that? What did he bought it for? He bought the Washington.
It's interesting. I think the price of the sale is the most interesting thing to me. The Boston Globe sold a couple days before, and anybody who's baseball fans probably realize that the Red Sox ownership is who bought the Boston Globe, and they paid $20 million less than they paid for John Lackey as a pitcher. He's a mediocre pitcher that came from the Angels a couple years ago. They paid him $90 million over X number of years. They paid $70 million for the Globe. So that's a pretty gut-wrenching testament to the value of media products. However, the situation we're in now, and this is the way our company operates, is that where the media ownership 10 years ago had gone out and leveraged everything to go buy more and more and more, even though the values have dropped, the value of the products haven't. So companies that can come in and pay out of their own pocket, not having to take massive debt loans and things like that to go out and buy like a Jeff Bezos, who can basically, yeah, he's probably financing to some degree, but he can basically walk in there and buy it and back it himself. He's not going and getting a billion-dollar loan like some of these companies have done. So we're still in that corrective stage, but eventually we're going to be able to get to the point where the ownership are stable, which will allow for some of those long-term growing pains. The benefit of Bezos and what he did with Amazon is that he spent a 10-year period to make Amazon profitable. He knew that it was going to be a long time. So from the original .com bubble that happened 10, 12 years ago, they withstood it because he was willing to say, we know we're going to lose some money. We have to eventually long-term be able to be profitable and a valuable company. And hopefully for journalism's sake, that's what he's able to do with the Washington Post. And that's something these other companies like ours and others can kind of take to heart. So.
Well, we just had the gentleman from the colleges here. What kind of impact does that have for Mesa?
It's interesting to hear the three of them up here and talking and showcasing the individuality of their programs. And that's what's so great about the 5 colleges. If you also add Upper Iowa and Benedictine University, and Upper Iowa just dedicated its new facility down in the Fiesta District over at basically Southern and Alma School, a beautiful new facility. Benedictine opens and has its grand opening in a couple of weeks as well. And it's an incredible thing to have those 5 and have such a different flavor to each one, so to speak. And then throw in ASU Polytechnic and all the attention tied to that and tied to the Tempe campus and how localized the East Valley as a whole is becoming for education. And it's a pretty amazing thing. And you mentioned the Grand Canyon announcement, and that didn't come as a surprise necessarily. I think where it's going is almost more telling than the fact they're actually coming out here. It's another boon in the cap of Eastmark and being able to add to that massive long-term development out there on the old GM Proving Grounds. And if you look at that gateway area and kind of look at that side by side to the downtown Fiesta region where these schools are, the 5 schools we're talking about here, you have 2 really interesting but different and still dynamic educational areas in the city of Mesa. You've got Polytechnic, you've got the new potential Grand Canyon campus. You've got Chandler-Gilwood Community College has a pretty viable sized campus in Mesa, interestingly enough, that right next to ASU Poly. So I mean, it's not one type and a one size fits all. It's a multiple size will fit all in terms of the scope. And Grand Canyon, the most interesting part to me, and it's been kind of plugged as a surprise to some people and even some leadership here in the area is, well, we didn't really expect a branch campus of Grand Canyon to come out here. It's probably not, I wouldn't necessarily call it a branch. I mean, it's being projected out as potentially up to 10,000 students. They're starting with 100 acres up to 160. I mean, it brings another very, very strong presence out here, but I don't think personally that diminishes the other 5 smaller schools in this area. I think what it does is it makes each of them have a different niche that can cater to an entirely different student. And there are actually a plentiful amount of local students already enrolling in the local colleges. Benedictine and a couple of these schools already are touting how many local kids they've been able to reach, and that's what I think is going to help the smaller in terms of enrollment schools actually shine, because they're going to be able to, like they had said up here, stay extremely local.
You mentioned Gateway. They just hit a milestone.
They did, 5 million passengers served, and it was kind of an interesting day because I got to imagine for leadership it was bittersweet, because it was announced the same day that Spirit Airlines said, well, we're going to start flying out of Sky Harbor instead of Gateway. What was underreported, and I'll say we've kind of fell prey to this too, I can admit that, was the fact that was 7% of Gateway's traffic, a very small portion. Gateway is extremely viable as an airport, and it's extremely desirable. And that, from everything our research and the people we've talked to, the most interesting part is how much people are waiting for that 3 or 5 or 10 year look at what Gateway becomes. And I've said it before, I grew up in the Los Angeles area, and the release valve airports, which I think sounds so bad, but it's not. It's incredibly valuable to the local residents. And so as Eastmark grows, as Grand Canyon University goes out there, as everything continues to grow, that airport's going to become even more valuable. And so I say that, I mentioned Spirit not to bring up a negative, but to actually say that, it would be nice if the other airlines were still around, but it was 1 to 2 flights a day out of the whole scope of what the airport serves. So the airport's doing great, and that 5 millionth passenger
that is awesome.
Kind of proved that. And
that's great. Well, the great thing about having you here every month is every month something new happens. So,
it's we talk about the education in the airport a lot, but what's neat, like you just said, is there's something new with those ventures, and those are 2 of the biggest things we've seen here. And that was the 5 millionth passenger. She's from Oro Valley, just north of Tucson, and that's actually a really interesting aspect of this story. Somebody just north of Tucson is using Gateway to get to a locale that isn't directly connected to Sky Harbor or to Tucson International. So she probably drove the hour and 15 minutes, which sounds like a long time, but if she's trying to get to a specific place, I think it was Bellingham, Washington, I believe that flight came from. So that's where Gateway's value comes into play.
Maybe she was just smart and she knew that it was getting close to 5 million and she was ready to.
Yeah.
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Brett, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next month.
Thanks,
Brett
Mark.
Fera.